there's a great meme that Erin created of her rolling her eyes at you on that podcast that she sends to me periodically to indicate how she feels about things.
Yeah. So she doesn't just do them to you, Drew. All right, we're actually going to start the show now. We've been recording for a little bit. We're having a joke with Drew Wrigley, who promised to be succinct on this episode of podcast. We'll see if the lives up to the promise, because I am dubious. All right, there was a tweet on Twitter. Our Attorney General Drew Wrigley wrote, "If we don't take this on, then who? North Dakota Ethics Commission must operate transparently and within constitutional norms, respecting due process for all North Dakotans, officials, and state employees. Time for daylight." Now, the obvious implication of that tweet, and I've written about, the criticism going back and forth between the Attorney General and the Ethics Commission previously as well. But the implication of that tweet is that the Ethics Commission is not operating transparently and within constitutional norms and is not respecting due process for all North Dakotans, including officials and state employees. So we wanted to bring the Attorney General on to talk about those statements. And Drew, make your case.
Yeah, I think in several regards that's certainly true. Not as a completely broad brush as maybe it seems after a tweet, but I stand by what I said there, and I stand by the very well-established record of the back and forth between the Ethics Commission and several entities, none of which they bother to ever respond to, which is a problem. I mean, they're either a standing entity who wants to engage with other components of our constitutional government, or they are not. And I suggest that they do that. I want to say too, I don't know all of the members. I've known some of them, and I know a couple now, including the new chair. And I think highly of them. Genuinely, Dr. Cynthia Lindquist is a wonderful person and educator, and someone I look forward to discussing these matters with. So, I mean, we have very serious concerns that we've raised. We've raised them in writing. We do that accountably and transparently, with the signature of the Attorney General of North Dakota official, and we never get responses from them to anything. We've raised very, very serious concerns, and so now we're at a point where they've gotten to the point where all they reply is, "Well, we don't like." You're being personal. Well, I guess I liken it to a medical malpractice lawsuit. Yeah, the doctor could say, "This sounds personal, like you're coming after my professional conduct as a doctor." Yeah, that we are doing that. We've done it in detail, in writing, none of which has been reported anywhere in these articles. And it's just time to get daylight on the situation so the public can be well served by a functioning ethics commission that is functioning within our system of constitutional government, because it seems as though there's a sentiment with some members and maybe staff of the Ethics Commission that they operate above constitutional government. In fact, they've said almost explicitly that they have supremacy over the laws and other matters in North Dakota. So those are matters that deserve public discussion. You make the point that we are engaged in that public discussion. I do routinely pay people the courtesy of candor. I tell them I'll say the same to them publicly that I'll say in a private meeting in my office. And there is a growing list of statewide elected officials, of government employees, and other stakeholders who have very, very serious concerns about the Ethics Commission. It's time to, I think, address those matters so that we can have a really constructive dialogue going forward.
So, Drew, you're saying you want to have a constructive dialogue with the Ethics Commission about the differences. Yeah. How does sending a tweet at 3:00 in the afternoon with a clip to a video that's clearly clickbait when the headline is, "You're not going to believe what happened to this student"? How in the world is the Attorney General sending out a tweet at 3:00 in the middle of the afternoon, further discussion and further the dialogue? It seems to me, Drew, you're just accelerating this fight and that you're enjoying this fight. How does the tweet help? How does the tweet help from the Attorney General of North Dakota, Drew? That makes no sense.
No, I think it's a very good question. I don't agree with your punctuation point on that at all. Because here we are, we're discussing it. And then tomorrow there's a very, very important Lafferty gathering for which we're providing very extensive, very detailed written testimony again, and a slide deck again, so people can go through, and we do this in an accountable way, saying these are the things we stand by these matters. And I'll show you. I've got an array
Drew,
of
I want
letters.
you to answer very clearly.
I'm answering.
How does your tweet help us have a constructive conversation between your office and the Ethics Commission?
My goal, my hope, and here we are, we're having this discussion. My hope is that the many months that this discussion has been going on, where we have been paying the Ethics Commission the courtesy of putting into writing our critique of things that they have said and done and not, and we put it into writing without any responses from them. There's no level of engagement from them. They are unaccountable, lacking transparency whatsoever. Here we are, we're having this discussion. People around here hear me say this a lot. We are forcing things. We are going to have this discussion in the daylight. So when I look at this array of letters, which I sent to you.
Your clip of a YouTube clip is furthering this discussion.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, for sure.
All right.
I believe that because whatever it takes to get people to read these many documents. Another elected official in the building said to me recently, you do know there's no chance that the Ethics Commission on the whole has read through all of these documents. When you're concerned that they aren't responding, you do understand they're not reading these right now. And that is concerning to me because they are matters directly to conduct of the commission in a meeting, responses and retaliatory comments and responses from staff as a result of testimony being given, formal testimony being given in the legislative process. None of this will ring with your listeners because they've heard none of it. It's been going on for months. It's a very significant constitutional, legal, practical discussion going on, and it's time to have it out in the public because it's important work that they're charged with doing. There's a promise that comes along with having an ethics commission, and the people of North Dakota passed that. They put it into the Constitution as part of, as I make clear in my most recent letter, as part of the Constitution, not to supplant the rest of the Constitution. So as you go through these documents, I know I sent them over to you fellas this morning. I think this is kind of the past across many months, and we'll be glad to up ahead answer any questions you have about these as well. Just understand that these are not being replied to by the Ethics Commission, and then they have sort of a ruminating discussion in their meeting. You go and watch it. They slander the chief of deputy. They mischaracterize her testimony. They defame her. Based on she deigns to stand in front of a legislative committee and point out the constitutional infirmities in what they're proposing to the legislative body. That is a policy discussion. It is important it be engaged by this office. Yes, as I say to folks, if not us, who? The tax commissioner's office. They don't have that responsibility. We have it. And as I say in the recent letter of August 7th to Dr. Lindquist, it is a growing number of elected statewide officials, other officials, legislators, state employees, many of whom are feeling chilled by the Ethics Commission response to. A good example is the report they came out with about this office. It is demonstrably false in so many ways that are easy to document, and you're left with two conclusions. They're either reckless or they're intentionally retaliating against an office they don't like being challenged by. And we document all that. We document it.
One of the struggles I'm having with this is, on one hand, I think the Ethics Commission can make a good case that they are not being given the resources and the direction they need from the legislature, and that the legislature in some ways has acted in ways seemingly to make our ability to have transparency and accountability more, whether it's implemented by the Ethics Commission or not, more difficult. I think there's a good case to be made there. I've argued that the Ethics Commission may have a solid legal case. I'm not a lawyer, but it sure seems to me like the legislature is violating the Constitution. On the flip side, I think there's been a number of instances when I hear the Ethics Commission say that they don't have the resources they need, but I'm also watching them, try to accumulate to themselves some legal authorities I don't think that they have, such as the issue fines. They're advocating for whistleblower protections that were so broad that whistleblowers acting in bad faith couldn't be disciplined or fired in any way. I think, Governor Armstrong's objections to the Ethics Commission appropriating to themselves through the legal opinion process the ability to make new policy when they say, oh, you know, political candidates, you're allowed to expend campaign funds on childcare, even though the ethics amendment to the state constitution says you're not allowed to spend money on personal expenses.
Right.
What's a more personal expense than daycare? And so I'm really struggling with some of that, where the ethics commission unilaterally says this is okay. It wasn't debated by the legislature. The executive branch didn't weigh in on it. The judicial branch hasn't weighed in on it. That to me is very problematic. And so to me, I'm seeing a gap there. That seems to be the center of the conflict between yourself and other critics of the ethics commission and the ethics commission itself.
Well, you articulated that very well, and that came in the midstream of this. Just to be clear, the other concerns that have been raised in the documents that I sent you this morning, dating back to December of 24, and then so forth. But yeah, that's part of it, and the public should be troubled by that, because what you miss in all of that is you miss policy formulation by people who are elected to do that. The most powerful entity in North Dakota is the legislature. That's where our constitution and practices place the authority. We're all given our lane by the state legislature, and they're claiming, and the example you just gave is just one of them. They're claiming that power for themselves. We should be worried about that. Whether an individual thinks it's a good idea that those expenditures should be allowed or not, whether they do or not, it should be people like when Aaron was here as a state senator, and the others who are elected from all across North Dakota to reach those conclusions after policy discussions in legislative hearings, in the hallway, hearing from interested parties.
So here's my concern with the legislature. And I think one of the things that I'm frustrated by this, because I think the Ethics Commission has been put in a position where they have no chance to succeed, because there's a lot of legislators who didn't want it passed and were offended that it was passed. So last session, you had a situation where they refused to add the staff, right? The Ethics Commission needed some more staff. I think right now they're at the executive director and a general counsel and maybe an admin assistant. So the legislature doesn't give them the staff they need and then complains that they're not getting through these complaints fast enough. Well, that seems unfair. And then going as far as saying, well, if they're not done with them in X amount of time, they automatically get thrown out. Well, to me, the legislature is powerful. The legislature is not acting as a partner to the Ethics Commission to try to move this forward. Instead, it seems to me they're trying to make it so they have no chance to succeed. What would you say to that?
I think you raised some really good points in there, and I don't want to let go by without noting is that idea that there's a artificial deadline, because every investigation can be different. That it's like X number of days. No, I've been a prosecutor off and on 30 years. That would not be. I like that you raised that. And I think that's fair. That came from frustration, though, of like, why do these things linger on? And it speaks to the backlog and staffing, and those are real discussions that
I just want to
have the daylight. They do need to have the daylight.
And I just want to interject. I mean, I am sympathetic, and I think the legislature should have given the Ethics Commission the staff and the staff that they wanted, and more resources too. On the other hand, I'm really struggling. They have concluded one.
I think that's a fair criticism.
All the years that they've been created, and it was Jason Doctor, and it was issued 5 years after the issue first came to light, and more than a year after he was convicted of the crime in a court of law. I'm sorry, they could be doing more than what they're doing, and which also makes it frustrating to me when it seems like we have all these extracurriculars that they want to do all these additional things when they're not doing the central thing very well at all.
But if you have a backlog of, let's say, rate kits or something like that,
right,
you don't not give them the staff that they need to get through the backlog.
Chad, that's a fair analogy. I think it's a good one. And we did get those resources, and we did away with that backlog and everything else. So I think that's a fair analogy. The reason I can't speak on behalf of the legislature, but watching the process, there's not a credible, open exchange. They don't have too many legislators don't have a trust for what they're hearing when it comes down. And let me give you an example. There are currently 3 ethics complaints against my office. People say, "Oh my gosh, is he nervous about that?" Yeah, here's what they are. And many people anecdotally are talking about the kinds of things that are part of their backlog. Here's one. Here's three that are remain a backlog. They've been in there for months, right? Somebody lodged a complaint that human trafficking is a problem in North Dakota. The legislature has allocated dollars to be handed out in grants through the Attorney General's office. There are only 3 months left in the legislative or in the budget cycle, rather in the biennium, and they still haven't passed out all the money. Ethics complaint, 3 of them. Okay, 2 of them they don't even have jurisdiction over, 2 of the people, and the other one, literally, it's like, okay, that's just a complaint, number one. And if you'd called the office, you'd say, what's going on with that? We'd say, oh, yeah, we've got these, we hand out grant dollars, and we've been sending out letters to these people saying, hey, listen, we know you're expending funds. We'll pay you for those. It's that's what it is. There it is. But that's been there for 3 or 4 months. They've never even contacted us about it because you know why? They don't want to. They want that backlog to be able to have this discussion. See, no, that's the kind of thing that people can take care of in about 10 minutes if they sit down. Senator Hogue said to me the other day, that's one of his major concerns is this backlog is replete with examples of cases that should be summarily sent out the side door. So
I think one of the difficult things is we're not allowed to look at that backlog either. It can be characterized different ways. I don't know. I can't see it.
But don't you think one of the things they've asked for is the ability to educate the public and educate legislators? I mean, to me, it seems like the Ethics Commission should help avoid ethical dilemmas. And maybe one of the things is educating the public that the grant funding coming from the AG's office is not an ethical complaint. Call their damn office.
I'm 100% with you. Yes. And in an exchange of information, that's what happens. So now the example that I gave you, the chief deputy walked into a legislative hearing, testified in detail and partially and in writing about here are the constitutional, legal, and practical infirmities in what you are offering up as one would think the beginning of a discussion. Like this is what we believe. Nope. The next ethics commission meeting, they sit around and they meander around and they sit there and they talk and they slander and they mischaracterize and they attack the chief deputy. That's what they do. A completely respected professional person who went in and gave testimony, and that's what their response is. And then we gave them a written thing like, hey, wait a second, you don't get to slander this office. Here's what we have going through all the detail. By the way, here's the attachments. No reply. That's one of 2 or 3 that we get no reply to. So when you say, why are you sending out a tweet? Because we're going to have this discussion. Because it's on behalf of the public. It benefits the public to have it.
But Drew, you were critical of the Ethics Commission for defending their executive director when they felt like you were attacking them. It sounds like now you're defending your deputy from attacks from the Ethics Commission. At what point does everybody take a deep breath and get in a room and stop? I mean, again, I will make the case sending out a tweet at 3 p.m. does not help this dialogue. It does not help. We need people to calm down, not to be accelerating if we want this to work.
Many of us are in the midst of many, many months of discussions on this matter. And I can tell you in the private conversations that I have with the governor or the Secretary of State or the Ag Commissioner, that none of us is sitting around figuring out ways, how can we undermine their work? Nobody is. And I said that point before, that's not what anybody's about. But when you say they're not the same critiques, by the way, we're pointing out the professional, practical, and legal infirmities of what their staff is doing. And they're literally just attacking the fact that this office deigned to go into a legislative committee and give you detailed critiques of what you're proposing. Those are very different things.
But I think people might look at those things
the color of that person's tie, and the other is saying, I don't support how that person is doing their job. And they don't even reply to it. You see what I'm saying? This is all in writing. They don't reply. So now, Dr. Lindquist
let me reference. I want to reference. You had provided me a letter before the show dated August 7th that you sent to Cynthia.
Got it right here.
She's the chair of the Ethics Commission. Cynthia, apparently it's a reply. She was requesting a meeting with you. You told her essentially, quoting now from the letter, "Well, I look forward to discussing those matters with you." And by the way, she wanted a meeting with you regarding concerns about the Ethics Commission staff and things like that. You said, I quote, "While I look forward to discussing those matters with you, it is clear to me we will not be able to have a constructive dialogue until I receive the Ethics Commission's written responses to this office's letter dated February 9th, 2025 and July 3rd, 2025. So what is it? I mean, what's it going to take for people to get in the room and for this to thaw a little bit and come up with a working relationship where we can find some common ground?
That it's going to take, first we have to have a response to our very detailed letters that we sent out with serious concerns that we're raising about a variety of things. It's all in writing. We need responses to those. We warrant it, we merit that response. We're not going to sit and argue against ourselves and have them come in here and saying, oh, we don't like that you guys, this hurts the ethics, our staff's feelings. Well, I'm sorry this hurts their feelings, but we are not critiquing, as I said, we're not critiquing their clothing colors. We are critiquing the work that is coming out of there, the conduct in what we believe to be, well, I'll leave it at that, the conduct of the staff, and then also the response of the Ethics Commission to a critique raised in a legislative hearing. Mike, that's what the process is about. So they come back at us with slander and mistruths and everything else about the chief deputy in an open hearing. That's not a constructive dialogue. So to that was a one pager that I just sent to them. And by the way, most of your folks maybe haven't met Dr. Cynthia Lindquist. She's wonderful. She's a wonderful human being. I think she's terrific, and I genuinely do look forward to the meeting. But first, we've got to have in hand a response to, okay, start off with the dialogue, and then let's have a conversation about the facts. What we're saying about your legislation, which now is moot because it didn't go through, but also how can this office, how can the Secretary of State, the governor, how can others in the building assist you with your requests for resources? And I pledge that we will do that. But first, I got to know how many of those are like the ones against our office that they're not even ethical. They're not even ethical matters. As the governor likes to point out, there's a big difference between something that is a legal question and something that is an ethical question. And we're working on what's going to be a pretty extensive AG opinion right now in response to that very question from the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State has been told by a member of the Ethics Commission and the Ethics Commission staff are basically like, we're going to do what we want because our rules sort of overarch state law. And I know I'll speak for the Secretary of State on this and he can address it himself, but he told them constructively, he said, the Secretary of State, will work with you in the next session to work on this campaign finance stuff. And he told them, I don't speak for the AG and the governor, but I talked to them enough to know they will too. That Chad will be the dialogue where we will have something come out of this and they'll realize we're not against you at all. We just need facts. Like, what is the backlog? What does it really look like? Okay, we agree with you. You need resources. We'll join you in that. I don't want anybody to be under-resourced in an important function. And the Ethics Commission has an important function. Nobody should conclude otherwise.
And the context for that back and forth between ethics and the Secretary of State's office was ethics wanted to get in the business of campaign finance stuff. Mm-hmm. Currently is under the Secretary of State's office. And I think if I'm understanding Secretary Howell's argument in that is essentially the law gives my office that authority, but now you guys are going to start doing it because you feel you have the authority under. I mean, there's tension, I think, and
right.
Some of it probably dates back to the original sin of this ballot measure wasn't well written, and I think in a lot of ways didn't take into mind that it's a puzzle piece that has to fit into existing constitutional language.
Exactly.
And it's really unfortunate. The thing I'm really afraid that the thing that I was afraid of that the Ethics Commission was going to become a political football when you saw the campaign to support it was, some very partisan people on it. I think that rightly or wrongly created some distrust around it. And then you have the fact that I think there are really some people in the legislature that want to get away with some things that are trying to starve the process. There's a lot of voters here.
So I think what's created the political football more than anything is a bunch of people pissed that the thing passed and that legislators are making it a political football. So Drew, I have a very straightforward question for you. I don't think this interview is probably going to help thaw the relationship between your office and the Ethics Commission. Can the relationship be thawed? Do you think that the Ethics Commission needs to fire their executive director and general counsel in order for this relationship to move forward?
I would never, ever offer up such a thing. I don't. And I'm not telling them not to or to. That's a staffing issue, and that's completely up to them. I would never call it that. I do know behind the scenes. Some people have said that, and they've suggested that I do that. And I've told them bluntly, no, I will not do that. We make our case in writing, accountably, saying these are the things, pointing out the infirmities is a kind word about their report that they put out on the doctor matter. Can you imagine? We're the whistleblower, right? Nobody knows about the doctor matter. Nobody knows anything about it. If it weren't for the fact that when I learned of it, the day after I removed the chief deputy at the time, you all know that story. Like, it wouldn't even be out there. And we cooperated fully. The only time, and I'm going to send you my testimony for tomorrow. I'll send it to you this afternoon. Okay. The only time, and they know this, she knows this, the only time we didn't just like, oh, here's some more information, was when they demanded documents that we had in our custody because of a federal search warrant in the Ray Holmberg prosecution. And I made clear to the executive director, I'm going to give them to you in a month, but I'm not giving them to you today because I don't even think it's legal for me to give them to you. We have them pursuant to this warrant, and I'm going to clear it, as I put in writing in my testimony for tomorrow. We're going to do that. We're going to do that only when approved by the U.S. Department of Justice, who has this federal prosecution going and is searching search warrants. You see what I'm saying? Like, she was literally insisting, no, we have to have it right away. So I called the chairman at the time, who's a lawyer and a litigator, and he understood right away. He said, Drew, this is not a problem. Get them to us when you can. It's going to thaw, I believe, Chad and Rob. It is going to thaw because I know where people's hearts are on this issue who want to work with them and will work with them. And I look forward to working with them. And I genuinely, Chair Lindquist, when we get an opportunity to meet, it's going to happen, though, after we have a dialogue, because right now they're forcing us to have it by ourselves. And when we go into a hearing and give testimony about their proposals, which were foolhardy and did not get adopted by the legislature, thankfully, we get attacked. You talk about personal, go watch that meeting. Go watch what they go after about the chief deputy. It wasn't anything about the substance of what was being proposed. They don't even address it there or in writing. That's not serious dialogue. So we're going to have a serious dialogue, and I really do believe that's going to happen. And I feel like I'm going to be very, very surprised if a year from right now, there's not a much more constructive dialogue on this matters. I really am, because I'm going to be surprised if they decide, oh no, we're not going to respond to these very specific claims that have been made by the AG's office over the course of many months now. We're not going to reply to it. If that's what they conclude, I'll be surprised. But I think it's going to be much more constructive up ahead. I really believe that. And it takes just sitting down at a table and them to understand that we come in peace, not in hostility. To legislators or anybody who is mad that the vote went another way, that's passed. That's done. It's in the Constitution and has to be interpreted consistent with the rest of the Constitution. And we are here to work with them on that. And I'm not the only one by a mile in this building who would pledge that same kind of, working relationship.
Drew, thanks for your time. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Drew.
it. And this is certainly not the last we're going to have of this discussion.
No, I'll send you that testimony for Lafferty. Lafferty is actually Thursday, and they scheduled it. I'm for the last couple of months been scheduled to be out of the country, and so I can't be there. Claire's got a family member who's got a cancer surgery that morning. So we make clear in our testimony, we give as much detail as we possibly can, but also make clear if there's any follow-up questions that they have. We want to, we're always available to address those. But I think it should be taken care of as a financial matter. And they'll realize when they read through it, it's like, yeah, the state has $500,000 as a result of our work and whistleblowing. You're welcome. Instead, the Ethics Commission's like, oh, we're not sure. There might be $14,000 that we can't. I mean, I make the case in there, and again, accountably, it's in writing. It's right there, and we'll see what they do with it. But I do call on them in there. They need to correct the report in so many obvious ways that it's inaccurate, and we think they should just withdraw it. It's not a serious document, and it's going to chill people. It's not going to chill me. It's not going to do that. I mean, we have a platform around here, we can respond, but that's the kind of thing that chills people, saying, and I've had people tell me, it's not worth it. Don't you just want to be like, oh God, I wish I'd never said anything about the building? Nope, I don't. But there are people that think that's the lesson. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.